Stacy.
And I'm Sam.
Welcome to Monster Soup and Creature Brews, the podcast where we talk about all things monster movies, big, small, creepy, or downright ridiculous.
From movie monsters to cryptids lurking in the shadows of folklore, we're here to explore them all. So kick back, grab a snack,
Or a drink,
and let's dive into some monster-filled mayhem.
Hello, on this week's episode we are going to be discussing Piranhas 3D.
After a sudden underwater tremor sets free scores of prehistoric, man-eating fish, an unlikely group of strangers must band together to stop themselves from becoming fish food for the area's new razor-toothed residents.
So normally I do ChatGPT explains it badly, but for this movie I'm going to explain it badly, and the only thing you need to know about Piranhas 3D is boats, boobs, blood.
Accurate.
They could have saved themselves so much time by just 3 words. Boats, boobs, blood.
Yeah, it's pretty spring breaky, for lack of a better way of saying it.
So when I originally saw this movie, it was in theaters with the 3D glasses, and my mom invited me to go see it. So I did no research about this movie at all. I was like, yeah, I'll go watch a movie with you. Show up, get my 3D glasses, sit down, was wildly unprepared. Because what none of these descriptions tell you is that this movie takes place during spring break, on a lake, while the Wild Wild Girls film a video.
Yeah, I also went to the movies to watch this, and I chose this movie for a date night, and that was a terrible idea.
She judged you so hard.
Probably.
Wait, did you get a second date out of that?
No.
I'm not surprised.
Me either, and I don't blame her. I'll go ahead and start reading the synopsis. The movie opens showing a chain link fence with a sign reading Mesolithic era dig site, and it cuts to a fisherman.
It's like you said dig site instead of dig site.
Dig site. It cuts to a fisherman drinking beer on a boat fishing. He drops his beer and then catches a fish. And then an earthquake opens up a crevice under the lake, which starts a whirlpool up on top of the lake. And the fisherman's boat is like spinning. And this guy is like pulling the drawstring to try to start his engine so he can get away. The pull string snaps and he falls into the water and then proceeds to be very grizzlyly eaten by piranhas.
Yeah, I felt bad because you see the fishing boat sort of float away peacefully after that.
Right, if he had just held out, sat in his boat, he'd have been fine.
He would have been fine, and instead he is our first death of the movie. What, 5 minutes in? 3 minutes in?
Oh yeah, the body count for this movie is pretty high too. And then it cuts over to a bunch of spring breakers on boats on the lake. So if you've ever seen any kind of video or experienced spring break, you can probably picture what it's like. Lots of ass and tits, very Girls Gone Wild. After the little montage of like people dancing on boats, you see a guy that's been pulled over by a sheriff getting a ticket, and this douche nozzle starts making a pass at the officer, saying she looks great and tan, and then he tries to touch her and immediately gets arrested. Jake, our hopeless hero, is riding through the town on a scooter, which is definitely the chick magnet. And
what are you talking about, Sam? Jake looks hot on that thing. Yeah. Every girl is like, yeah, a moped.
Yeah, he looks so dopey because he has the helmet too. It's
pretty bad.
And he catches sight of his mother arresting idiot number 1. And then he parks his scooter and runs into what appears to be a friend from high school that's gone to college named Kelly. I don't really understand. I'm assuming she's like a year ahead of him.
I don't know. I was a little fuzzy on that. Does Jake stay home because his mom needs his help with his younger siblings,
no,
maybe?
He's 17.
Oh, yeah, you're right. They do mention that.
She doesn't... I can't remember if she... I watched it twice and still didn't catch it. But I don't know if she expressly says she's from college. She's home from college. But it sounds like either she had to move away or that she's away for college and is here for spring break.
Or maybe she's just doing what most of us other teenagers did and just enjoying the spring break with her older boyfriend.
Possible. It's kind of hard to say.
Basically, Jake has a crush on Kelly, and she's back in town to party on these boats with her boobs out too.
Yeah. As he's chatting up his old friend, she mentions she's waiting for Todd, who she's going to check out some music with. Jake clearly feels some type of way about this guy, because he's like, Todd Dupree. And then just that tone, I was like, I felt that. I can't tell you how many times I've like had a friend who was dating an idiot. It was like, really?
That guy.
No standards.
Well, but he had music tickets, so that was the standard, Sam. There was a standard, it just wasn't a good one.
Yeah. Kelly makes an interesting comment stating, "Remind me who you're going out with again." And Jake says, "Hey, at least I have some standards." They never reference this again, so I'm wondering. There's a couple times in this movie where it feels like there are drop plot points where they were probably going to do something and chose not to. Because it makes it sound like Jake's dating someone. Or
I think you're giving this movie more credit than it deserves Sam.
I understand that it's a low budget, we're just going to throw everything at the wall movie, but there's a couple times in the movie where it felt like they're referencing something that was probably originally written in the script, and they just let it go without remembering that they made these comments. I'm very curious, like, how does that happen over and over again? Because there's 2 or 3 times where that's a thing.
I just don't think they cared.
Well, just like...
This movie was clearly just about boobs and man-eating fish.
No, I get that. I just mean, if you're going to make the effort to make the movie, do some bare minimum due diligence. That's all I'm saying.
Follow through on your plot points.
Yeah, it's just, that comment, because I didn't catch it the first time, but the second time I was like, that heavily implies that he's currently dating someone, and she's judging him for the person he's dating. Or the fact that he is dating someone and making a comment about her choices. Like, he had a chance at her and he threw it away for some reason, for someone else, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, Kelly tries to talk up Todd, saying he's a really good DJ. And Todd pulls up with his homies in a no-top Jeep blasting music from very standard 2010s douchebag. He yells at Kelly to get in because they're late. And Kelly does one last talk up, saying he's got backstage tickets for this band, and she invites Jake to come along. Jake uses watching his siblings as an excuse not to go, which actually is a legitimate excuse. Lacey will probably comment on the attire Kelly is wearing, because she has the jean skirt.
Okay, that was an era, though. Every outfit in this movie...
Yeah, it's dated.
...is just of that era. Even the swimsuits, the tiny mini jean skirts, all of it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I like that you put in your notes that I'm going to make a comment on the outfits.
No, I was like thinking it and just typing as I went along. Todd's friend in the passenger seat, after Kelly gets in, yells to Jake, "Cool shirt," and then throws a cup of soda at him.
Who does that?
Whenever I see bullies in movies, I'm always like, I've never seen... I want to go meet the guy who's like, this is a good idea. I want to be the guy that does this. I'm super cool. Because I can't fathom someone being this low or not liking someone enough to be like, I'm going to throw my fucking soda at him. My big gulp.
First of all, you're a monster for throwing your slushie at someone. And second of all, you're a monster for wasting a perfectly decent slushie.
Isn't it sad that that's my first thought? I was like, why would you waste I spent money on this. I'm not going to go throw it at someone. Okay,
let's talk about inflation for a minute here. First of all, you probably spent like $7 on the fucking Slurpee at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is 2010, so it's probably not that bad.
$3 on that Slurpee, but still, it's offensive.
I got to tell you, maybe it's just because I'm a poor boy. But I would never buy something and then waste it by... Like, when I see people throw food at people, I'm like, no, I eat all my food. I clear my plate. I'm not throwing my food at somebody. I'll throw somebody else's food. Anyways, side tangent aside. We move over to a girl in a red polka dot bikini who sits next to a girl holding a trombone. The bikini girl says, "Nice horn," and the little girl says, "Nice boobs." And then proceeds to have a conversation about boobs and bras and about how her brother would probably like her boobs and she doesn't like trading bras. It was very awkward. Jake walks over and tells his sister it's time to go. The girl in the red polka dot bikini, Danny, comments that she likes his shirt. And he thinks this is a dig because he has soda all over his shirt. And she's like, "No, I really like the band that's on your shirt." And as they're having this conversation, the guy with the camera walks over and asks where Crystal and Andrew are. Danny points off to the side and says they're getting sunscreen. And then he starts talking to Crystal and Andrew, telling them they don't need sunscreen. They need body paint and condoms. This guy is like the creepiest dude ever. He's a great actor because he gets that, like, I'm a douche nozzle perfect.
Yeah.
But he's clearly filming some type of Girls Gone Wild stuff. Our creep finally notices Jake and asks who this. Danny introduces him as a local. And Derek immediately calls him a sand rat, which is the mascot for the local high school. Derek offers Jake a job to be a location scout. Derek gets a phone call and walks off, and Jake asks Danny, who is that guy? And she calls him the director. And she mentions she's a wild, wild girl. That reference becomes more important later. After Jake tries to dodge explaining to his sister what a wild, wild girl is, Derek walks back and says 10 a.m. tomorrow, and then they walk off. We cut to Jake Oh, this part is so embarrassing. I have third-party embarrassment for Jake for this part. We cut back to Jake being a teenage boy with internet in a room alone. He's looking up Derek, who has a site called, you guessed it, Wild Wild Girls. And Jake has the creepiest smile on his face during this scene. I didn't pay too much attention to this the first time around, but...
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say most teenage boys alone in their room with a laptop looking up the Wild Wild Girls website would have a creepy smile on their face.
I gotta tell you too, the way this scene is way creepier the second time around. Because it's really quick when you watch it the first time, you don't notice. But his computer desk is in the middle of his room with the screen facing the door. No kid ever that has set up his own room would do that. You always got to do it so the screen is not facing the person that walks in.
Well, they just had to make it embarrassing for all of us. And also, his mom should have just knocked. If you have a teenage boy, you should just knock.
For real.
You know, if you have teenagers, period, just knock. It's gonna save everybody a lot of embarrassment.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So outside of his creepy smile that he has on his face, he's obviously looking up some type of porn site. I wrote down some of the posts that are on there, and
gosh,
it's so bad. Here we go. Missy likes to get down and get rockin' with this co-ed, age 21. Her likes are travel, long walks on the beach, holding hands, and Missy studying to be a doctor. Can you say ah? And it's like a topless picture. It's pretty bad. And then, of course, his mom, the sheriff, her name is Julie, walks in mid-study session. His mom confronts him because his sister dimed him out and was like, hey, you're supposed to be babysitting, but clearly he's trying to make plans, sibling things. And the brother and the sister protest having a babysitter. So he has two siblings, a younger brother and a younger sister. And they're trying to fight with their mom about having to have a babysitter because they're 11, 12. They think they can be alone. And the movie proves otherwise.
I was about to say, just based on their immediate choices as soon as Jake, spoiler alert, leaves, I'm going to say no, that the mom made the right call in deciding that these two twins could not be unsupervised because they very quickly make many poor decisions right in a row.
Yep. So the mom essentially is pleading with him to be present and make sure to watch his siblings. And he assures her he'll be on top of things. And when she walks out of the room, he makes the biggest rookie mistake. He immediately turns back on his monitor, and any kid who's downloaded anything from Kazaa, LimeWire, or visited any kind of CD site as a kid, dude has 20,000 pop-ups pop up on his screen. Beach blanket, XXX, S&M. Vote on these boobs. Are they fake or real? Just all overlapping on his screen. It's very, very late 2000s.
Honestly, another of the era LimeWire.
Yeah, LimeWire.
Ruining all of our parents' computers.
Oh, yeah. There isn't a computer on the planet that wasn't full of viruses. So as soon as he turns back on his monitor, his mom pops in to tell him that dinner's ready. And of course he has to have another meltdown because his mom is essentially catching him wanking. We skip to Julie, who's getting a call out in the middle of the night to investigate a missing person, our fisherman from the opening scene. His wife hasn't seen him since noon of the previous day. They walk down to the pier nearby to investigate the boat that's drifted back ashore. As they're walking on the pier, Deputy Fallon tells her that they got a call saying they had heavy seismic activity in the area, and that they're sending out a dive team to investigate under the lake. As they finally pull up on the boat, for some reason, the big black guy with long arms stands back while the tiny little lady tries to reach out to the end of the boat to pull it in because it's hovering just past the pier. And just when she's almost about to get the boat, she's trying to reach out to it, a section of the pier just collapses and she falls into the water. Right after she stands back up, the corpse just pops up out of the water and lands on top of her, and they pull the body out of the water, and they're both bone dry.
No, I don't care about that because I'll go ahead and just assume that once again people weren't paying close attention to when they were actually making this movie. I'm disturbed that they weren't wearing gloves. Be bone dry if you want to, whatever. I know your hair has to look fabulous in the movie, but put on some freaking gloves because they even had the fake blood on their hands.
Yeah, she still had blood on her,
and they're all dry and covered in blood, and I'm where are the gloves?
Yeah, there's just little things. They talk about potentially what could have caused the body to be in the state it was in because it was obviously chewed all over. And Julie plays with the idea of shutting down the lake until they get the autopsy report back. But Fallon disagrees, stating that the autopsy could take days and spring break is a big financial week for the town. And then we see it immediately cuts to someone jumping off a cliff into the lake and immediately gets eaten. There's tons of these scenes just sprinkled throughout the movie, so I'm just gonna point this out. There's a lot of underwater shots of, the piranhas trying to get close to people and people managing to just get away, or people jumping in and immediately dying and no one else is watching these people. And then we see Jake trying to convince his siblings to watch themselves and not rat him out when he leaves. And eventually he has to cough up not only the money that he's getting paid to babysit, but on top of that, an extra $20. He agrees after laying down the rules that, they don't answer the phone and they don't leave the house and they stay inside. And then we cut over to the lake that has all the partiers in full swing. And then we meet the diving team who are like unloading a bunch of equipment and trying to put it all onto Julie's boat to investigate. More boobs, more partying, music, etc.
So many boobs.
They literally, between every 10-15 minutes, they cut back to the party goers and just show boobs.
Boobs, butts, boats. That's all you need to know.
Boobs, butts, boats, beer. Lots of beer. Lots of drinking.
I want to know what the casting call for this movie looked like.
I feel like they were like, we'll pay for your spring break. Let us film you. Because that's all they have to do. Because I remember all those MTV spring break parties or whatever. It's essentially this, but on the lake.
I know that it probably was a very normal run-of-the-mill casting call, but I like to imagine that they showed up at a frat house.
It was
on a college campus nearby.
We got a deal for you. All the beer you can drink.
You just have to be here at this time. Wear your swimsuit.
Easy peasy.
Lemon squeezy.
We follow Jake walking through the crowd to get to Derek's boat, which has Derek filming Crystal and Danny, who are dancing on the edge of the boat. Crowd chant starts, motorboat, and they motorboat each other. As Jake gets closer to the boat, he runs into Kelly, who's surprised to see him there, trying to figure out who's he babysitting now. When Derek calls out to him to get on the boat, Derek spots Kelly and invites her onto the boat. Despite Jake's attempt to convince her not to get on, she gets on. As she's getting onto the boat, Todd notices her and calls out to her and asks, "Hey babe, aren't you going to hang out with us this weekend?" And she calls him out for not having backstage tickets. So apparently Todd doesn't have the connections that she thought he had. Back with Jake's siblings, they immediately prove why they need a babysitter. His little brother is trying to catch fish off the pier, and because the fish aren't biting, he wants to row over to the island that's really close to the pier. So him and his sister get into a canoe and row over to the island that's not far from the pier. They don't really tie the boat up very well, so the canoe immediately starts to drift away right after. So they get stranded on an island.
Another plot point. Hypothetically, these children live on the lake next to a pier. Are you telling me they don't know how to swim? It didn't look that far.
They could have easily swam.
I mean, it's good they didn't.
Safety reasons.
Piranhas.
Yeah, safety reasons they shouldn't either because they're small. It's really easy to get tired. I can swim that distance.
But I can just tell you, when I was 12, I wouldn't have even thought about it. I would have just hopped in the water and swam back to the pier. If it was genuinely that close, I'd have been like, whatever.
And then lied about, I don't know what happened to the canoe.
Right? You know what? No, I don't even think I would have lied. I would have honestly just said, dumb fuck over there. Didn't tie it up right, and it floated away. And I just wouldn't have included, that
the
it
fact
was
that
from...
I was going over there.
That it was from the island. I would have just said he didn't tie it up right.
Yep. Back on Derek's boat, he's passing out the bubbly to the girls while wearing pants, no shirt, and a white fedora. Wow.
Of the era. Fedoras. That was a thing in the 2000s.
And he was being super creepy with Crystal and Kelly and Danny. Or with Crystal and Kelly. Danny continues to hit on Jake, who is underage, by the way. He's 17.
Many inappropriate themes in this movie. Consent matters, people.
Yeah, you can't be under the influence and make good decisions.
Right.
Danny and Crystal go swimming in the lake while Kelly's on a little floaty. Crystal and Danny take off their bathing suits and hand them to Jake and start swimming under the boat. The boat has a glass floor and they're filming the girls under the boat naked dancing. This is a 5-minute scene of just naked girls in flippers dancing underwater together. It cuts back and forth between Derek, Jake, and Andrew filming them and then be like, oh my god, naked. Naked girls.
I just like that he keeps yelling out, put your ass on the glass.
Oh yeah, I get to that actually because it's so bad. So Derek and crew are watching them. Oh, here we go. I wrote down some of the comments. Most of these are from Derek. He says, it's like watching fishes with boobs. If fishes look like this, I would fuck fishes. Another one-liner, beer, sun, and naked honeys making out underwater. Just in time to ruin the fun, his mom gives him a call. So Jake's mom gives him a call, saying she's been trying to reach them while he's trying to talk to his mom. The bozos in the background are shouting shit like, put your ass on the glass.
It's loud.
Unnecessarily loud volumes, almost like they're trying to embarrass him. And Jake runs outside because they're like below deck. Jake runs outside to talk to her, and she pretty much just tells him to stay off the lake today. And just as he hangs up, he notices Kelly isn't on her little floaty anymore, and he starts shouting for her and panics and jumps into the water to look for her. Kelly calls out to him from the boat after he's like going full meltdown, saying he missed the rest of the show as the girls get back on the boat.
There's a really weird energy between Jake and Kelly because they are not a couple.
There's clearly some tension there.
Maybe it's just because the actors themselves really liked each other. Maybe that's bleeding through the screen. I don't know.
Who knows? It cuts back to the investigation team, and they're looking at the caverns below the lake. Apparently there was a lake below the lake that opened up after the earthquake. It's a 3-man diving team. 2 of them jump into the lake with diving equipment, and they explore the bottom of the lake and start swimming towards what looks like a tiny crevice that leads into the bottom half. Julie and the last member of the dive team, named Novak, notice that they're splitting up on the little radar. One of them is going to explore the hole and one is staying on the outside just in case. The guy exploring the hole discovers a bunch of what can only be described as eggs. Very creepy prehistoric eggs. And the diver does not have, his wetsuit isn't a full wetsuit. It's just his legs. Which I gotta tell you, if I'm gonna be exploring underground cavern that I've never been in before, I think I would want a full wetsuit. He had a sleeveless wetsuit.
If the water is warm, it's not really a big deal not to have your arms covered because the main reason that you wear a wetsuit is to regulate your body temperature.
Oh, okay. I didn't know anything about it. I just thought it was weird because the woman of the dive team is wearing a full wetsuit and this guy's wearing a sleeves. It literally looks like bad overalls.
Yeah, so that would be the main purpose, would be to regulate your body temperature. And then it does offer, obviously, some skin protection. So if you're going to be in an area where you don't necessarily want your skin brushing up against things, like perhaps maybe if you're cave diving, there could be some value in that too. But it's not necessarily that weird of choice because it is warm water.
Oh, okay.
That being said, I think the bigger concern in all of this is that it's not usually a great idea to go exploring unfamiliar caves without...
That haven't been mapped out?
Without radioing to your team up above what you're doing.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that, they didn't try to tell them up above that they were going into a cave, because I feel like that's important so they know what's going on.
That being said, I do have my dive license and I do enjoy going diving, I do not do cave diving because I don't like the idea of the dark enclosed spaces. That really freaks me out.
I like living.
Yeah, and you have to, it's easy to get lost while diving because the water moves you as you're swimming, especially.
Right, it's really hard to keep track of where you are at all times.
And so it's not totally unheard of or unusual for people to drift and find themselves in unfortunate situations. And I've just never personally liked the idea of combining that risk with the natural wildlife that you inevitably always encounter.
You already have so much to look out for.
Granted, it's never... Well, I shouldn't say never. Granted, it's not usually prehistoric piranhas, but there are other forms of wildlife that exist in various bodies of water. So I've never wanted to combine that with the wildlife with a dark enclosed space.
Right, there's already enough to worry about. The last thing I want to worry about is getting trapped in a cave.
Yeah, so that's not my particular area of diving that I enjoy, but there are people who do.
Yep, more power to him. This idiot goes to touch one of the eggs and gets bitten by something, and he cracks a flare to see what it was that bit him. He's surrounded by hundreds of piranhas. He gets torn to pieces, and they can hear his death throes as he's getting eaten over the radio. And his partner on the outside tries to get in, and then immediately gets attacked as soon as she sticks her head in the hole and tries to swim out. And Novak up top hears all the chaos and the screaming that's going on. So he suits up and jumps into the water, and he's just in time to grab the diver as she's been completely eaten alive. And he somehow manages to grab her body, not get eaten, and get all the way to the top of the boat.
He does get bitten a few times, to be fair.
Does he? It didn't seem like it.
Yeah, it shows some patches of, maybe it's her blood, but it shows some patches of blood on him.
Oh, okay. I thought it was her because he was carrying her corpse.
I want to point out though, just as a side note, that the diver that survives, the third member of the team, Novak, is Ben Wyatt from Parks and Rec.
It's really hard not to call him Ben through the whole movie.
The whole time I'm like, oh, Ben Wyatt, no.
Yeah, he screams up once he gets her to the top of the lake, he screams for the sheriff to help him get her out of the water like she's still alive somehow. She's clearly a skeleton. And one of the piranhas gets pulled up with the body. They box it up and take it to a local to identify. They cut back to the party boat, and we see Crystal laid out with salt on her belly, a lime in her mouth, and Derek doing body shots off her. He tries to get Kelly to take a body shot off Crystal as well. Jake tries to get Derek to back off, and he gets in his face, and some super date rapey vibes about consent. Because he's like, she didn't say no. She said, no, thank you. There's a big difference. And he really gets in his grill about it, and I'm like, whoa, chill. It was pretty bad.
This actor does a great job of portraying the world's worst douchebag. The type of person who would have this kind of website, I guess I should say. Because you want to know where I recognized him from, that actor? Is he plays in a movie called Kangaroo Jack, which is a super cheesy TV movie about a guy and his buddy who go to Australia to deliver a package for his mobster family. They were supposed to deliver like an envelope full of cash for their own hit, and they accidentally lose it because they put their lucky jacket on a dead kangaroo to take photos of him. And the kangaroo's not dead and hops off, and so the whole movie's them just trying to get that money back. And so like watching him go from that super cheesy character in Kangaroo Jack to this, he does a good job.
Yeah, very extremes.
Yeah.
After a little peer pressure, Kelly agrees, and Jake tells her she doesn't have to do this in apparent protest. She clearly didn't want to do this, but as soon as Jake said that, she was like, nah, I'm going to do it. She does the shot. And just when Jake's turn is up to do a shot off Crystal, Danny convinces Kelly to be our next table. Jake does the shot off Kelly, and right when he's getting the lime, Kelly hops up and pukes right over the side of the boat.
Which, because this was originally a 3D movie, they changed the camera angle so that it looks like the puke is coming at you. It's extra gross.
Yeah, it looked like huge chunks. Back with Novak and Julie, they've boxed up the piranha and they're banging on the door of a Mr. Goodman, who's played by Christopher Lloyd. This is the second movie we've had Christopher Lloyd. Doc Brown showing up a lot of random movies. He does all this time hopping and just shows up in random movies. I wish he had done more and it just became like this huge conspiracy theory that's just Doc Brown moving around the world at different time periods.
Changing his identity, that's how he actually knows so much about prehistoric piranhas.
Yeah.
I'd buy that.
He dumps the piranha into a fish tank and they observe it. Goodman claims that this piranha vanished from the earth 2 million years ago, and he brings out a fossil of the very same piranha. He's amazed that they found one alive. Novak mentions that they discovered a subterranean lake under the current lake, and Goodman thinks that they've resorted to cannibalism to stay alive after all this time. He notes all the scars on its scales. Goodman, to show how honed its senses are, he sticks his finger in the water and it snaps at him, which is a wild thing to do, by the way. Goodman says if there are really thousands, they should have started yesterday if they were going to kill them all.
Honestly, at this point, it's a lost cause. Invasive species are really hard to get rid of, and because they were pocketed in that little canyon, you can just assume they're an invasive species.
They would essentially have to drain the lake.
It would be almost impossible.
Well, because they're like going to keep eating each other and reproducing. What are you going to do? And it very much depends on whether or not this lake bleeds out into somewhere else or is being fed by something. Because then they'll be able to get out. For now, they can just isolate it, and there's nothing that'll happen. They'll just keep doing whatever they're doing.
At this point, the lake is a lost cause, and your best bet is that it doesn't feed into a river that goes someplace else.
Yeah, if it's a completely isolated lake and doesn't feed anywhere, you could easily bleach the whole fucking lake.
Well, you'd kill everything else. I don't know that anybody would bleach the lake, because if stuff comes to drink out of the lake, you know, like birds or whatever. But you could rope it off and just tell no people, and then anything that originally lived in the lake, unfortunately, it's just going to be survival of fittest.
Yeah, they're fucked.
You know what? I'll buy that prehistoric creatures managed to cannibalize each other in that secluded cavern. What I don't buy, though, is that none of them are albino. Because if they've been living down there for millions of years isolated, they would have evolved and become blind and albino. Every other cave creature is.
Fair. Good point.
So that's, you know what, I'll buy everything else. I don't buy that they're not albino.
Well, that's not to say that there isn't some let off that has light that comes in and they just can't get out.
Even then, when you look at other cave creatures like crabs or whatever else, albino.
Oh, fair. I don't know enough, so.
Millions of years is what we're talking about.
Yeah, you're right.
They would evolve to the darkness. Like all those creepy sea creatures I watch in my ocean documentaries.
Yeah,
they would adapt.
We get more boobs. We get a girl that's parasailing behind a boat. No bathing suit on. Jake is doing the filming. Derek and Crystal are snorting some booger sugar. And Kelly is over a toilet still puking. Jake, while filming, pans over to a nearby island and sees his brother and sister waving for help. Derek complains about Jake not filming his flying titties. Jake tells him that his mother is the sheriff, and Derek very quickly changes his tune and says, hey, let's go pick up the kids. After a very awkward, Crystal and him both do the exact same motion where they kind of clean off their nose a little bit, and they turn the boat around and go pick up his siblings. And then we see our parasailing girl get her whole bottom half eaten. And somehow no one reports this. Neither Jake, the crew, or the guys that were, driving the boat. No one reports the fact that this girl just got eaten in half.
You know what? I'll buy that nobody reported it because maybe they don't have cell signal. Because when we go out to Lake Pleasant, we don't have cell signal. Maybe I'll buy that. But Jake and his whole crew, no one noticed it. She was screaming as her whole body got eaten.
Yeah. I find it very unlikely that no one caught that, right? Not to mention they were just filming.
They were filming her, so you think that there'd be some sort of debrief or
Or, hey, we're going to stop filming because we got to go do this.
Right, thanks, Diamond. We appreciate filming your nakedness in our parasail. Have a great spring break.
My flying titty.
Right?
Now we get back to the spring break side of the lake, and they're right in the middle of a wet t-shirt contest. The sheriff and her deputies are trying to get everyone off the lake, but people just aren't interested in listening. It gets so bad that Fallon takes out his pistol, shoots into the air, which is not safe, to get everyone's attention.
Fuck these spring breakers. One of them can eat a bullet. It'll be fine.
He gets a loudspeaker out and tells everyone it's an emergency and that they have to evacuate the lake. But they just continue partying and turn the music up louder. After Jake picks up his siblings, he's arguing with them, and Derek snatches them up off the shore and throws them onto the boat. Because apparently they're late for the main event, and Derek is spiraling here.
Cocaine's a bitch, dude.
Yeah. Jake asks Kelly to watch his siblings as he puts them down below deck. And right when Jake is about to go back up to the boat, the prop gets caught on some seaweed. And instead of cutting the engine and clearing the prop, like I feel like most people would do, they just keep pushing the engine, which is crazy because they're just going to burn the engine out. Derek starts to spiral on Jake. He's clearly very, very high and drunk. He's fucking losing it. And he accuses Jake of mutiny, which is fucking hilarious. Because everything is going wrong, and it's all because of him. And after the engine starts to seize, Derek pushes Andrew out of the way and pushes the engine full throttle. And then it cuts back to the partygoers, and Julie is still trying to shut down the party. And it doesn't take long before the massacre starts. It starts with one person, and this lady, so unsuspecting, is just sitting on top of a floaty. And piranhas just eat her ass, literally.
And sadly for this particular girl, she actually looks fairly sober, unlike some of the other people.
Yeah, she literally just looks like she's just hanging out, enjoying the vibe.
Chilling, living her best life, and her butt gets bitten.
Yeah, and this is what the sheriff should have done, is immediately when that girl gets attacked, someone yells shark, and everyone just starts bolting.
It's hilarious, because it's a freshwater lake.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter when you're drunk. You hear the word shark. She could have yelled...
it's a lake, and they're yelling shark. I'm like, what the fuck?
She could have yelled fire and it would have had the same result.
Yeah.
Everybody would have panicked, and it's a lake.
Yeah. Pandemonium breaks out for this is a 20-minute scene. It's insane how long this is.
It's just carnage. Naked people, blood, boobs, bones.
We see everyone scattered to get on boats, floats, and anything out of the water. The stage the DJ was on flips because too many people get on it. Here are some notable brutal deaths. Lots of close-up of people just getting eaten underwater. You got boats and jet skis just running over people. A lot of people are just getting milled over by boats. The stage equipment falls into the water, and a stray cord rips 2 girls in half.
I have to close my eyes during that part because I'm pretty okay with most of this movie, but there's something about that girl's torso sliding off with her boobs.
Yeah, the
just
cord
freaks me
cuts
out.
them in half, and they're still moving, and their body slowly starts to slip apart. It's pretty gruesome. We see a guy trying to climb onto boats, get his head splattered by a passing boat. And then we get Todd, Kelly's little fling guy. We see Todd in a perfectly safe area. He's on top of a yacht. And instead of just staying on the yacht, being safe, he tries to make a break for it in a little motorboat. And before he can make it to shore, he's killing people and running over people.
He's decapitating people left and right with his boat.
A girl's hair gets caught in his propeller.
I couldn't watch this part. It was so bad.
Yeah, her whole face gets ripped off. And followed by Todd falling into the water because all these people are trying to climb into his boat when the engine seizes or gets caught.
And that girl's hair.
Yeah. And then you get a break from all the carnage. Back with Jake, we see Derek trying to muscle his way through all the seaweeds that have caught onto the engine. And he's just going full throttle with the boat. The boat finally gets free. and quickly runs into a bunch of rocks, and the glass bottom floor breaks. Kelly gets knocked unconscious. Crystal, Andrew, and Derek all fly off the front side of the boat. Crystal gets eaten alive by piranhas, and Derek just like watches it happen, and he starts screaming and tries to get back on the boat. They never say or show what happens to Andrew, the other guy that's filming.
With the dorky sunscreen on his nose?
Yeah.
I just assumed he was eaten.
He falls off the boat, and they don't actually show him getting eaten. They just show Crystal and Derek freaking out. So they just forget about him. He just disappears. I'm assuming he gets eaten. They don't actually show it.
Wouldn't that be a great conspiracy theory, though, if he wasn't eaten, he managed to swim to shore because the piranhas were too busy eating Derek and Crystal?
Yeah. Derek screaming tries to get back to the boat. Jake gets his siblings from below deck and yells to wake up Kelly. She's trapped below deck on the other side of the water because the piranhas are flooding in from the crack. Danny tries to save Derek with an oar, and she pulls him out of the boat, but his lower half has just been completely eaten. Danny bats off the rest of the piranhas, while Derek screams that they took his penis. Jake tries to break the skylight to get Kelly out from below. We briefly get shown underwater, where we see fake boobs float up.
Yeah, so this is just OG Snarkers. Her implants are just like floating in the water. So you can just assume that Crystal has been completely eaten at this point.
And on top of that, we get to see Derek's penis that's getting chewed on by a piranha. It like chews it, spits it out. So you see it in its whole state. You see the piranha eat it, spit it out, and then it's like a completely eaten or a half-eaten penis.
Karma for being a disgusting pervert.
Oh yeah, it was clearly, them being like, be a douche, get karma.
It was also, if you watch this in 3D, it was a lovely 3D effect.
Right? You got to see it right in front of you. It's almost like you could touch it. Back on the beach, we see people still trying to escape. And this is really just a montage of people being ripped in half and just gory scenes of people trying to get to shore and either not making it or making it and then falling apart.
Or making it and just bleeding out on the beach.
We see Deputy Fallon still shotgunning piranhas. I forgot to mention this, but they're using their pistol and shotguns to like shoot the piranhas. Like the most ridiculous, insane things in a movie I've ever seen.
Well, there's thousands of piranhas and there's just like one bullet at a time. It would do no good.
You're not doing anything.
Hey, you know what? That's a little easier to believe that someone would panic and just start shooting the water. The officer at one point puts her taser in the water and...
Yeah, that was insane. Like, what are we doing? Yeah, that was insane. Anyways, Fallon's like trying to shotgun piranhas, trying to save people. And after he runs out of shells, he like rips a motor off a boat, starts it, and just starts cutting down piranha with the like propeller on the engine. And eventually he dies because he like gets surrounded. And I'm like, dude, you're like 2 feet away. He's literally 2 feet away from the shore. He could have just walked back up on shore.
Well, I don't think he actually saved anybody. I don't think this was like a worthwhile sacrifice.
No, I don't think he did anything. It was a meaningless death.
Well, I mean, it was kind of a cool 3D scene with the propeller and the boat.
Yeah, I mean, it looked cool, but it felt useless. Not long after that, it pans to like all the dead bodies. And we see Julie, who's trying to like staunch the wounds for some people or like trying to stop the bleeding. She gets a call from Jake, and Jake kind of spills about everything. He talks about how they're on the lake on a boat and it's sinking and both his siblings are on board. She just goes full mother mode and like sprints over to a boat that's on like the edge of the carnage. Novak, who's been on a jet ski trying to rescue people, meets back up with her on the boat and they take off to try to find Jake. They have like a rope attached to the back of the bar. Kind of like, I'm assuming it's for like parasailing, so you can like be attached, or for pulling like people on like a little...
Wakeboarding, I think is what you're thinking of.
They have a rope attached to the crossbar and they throw it over to the boat that Jake is on, and they make like a little tightrope from boat to boat. Julie climbs over to assess the situation and decides it's probably best to take Danny and the kids over to the other boat and then come back for Kelly. Jake like freaks out at this moment and is like, no, we can't leave Kelly. She's only on this boat because of me. And I'm like, bitch, if you don't get your ass off this boat, I would have like slapped the shit out of him. I was like, what are you doing? I'm not leaving her. I'm coming back. But I need you guys to get off the boat so this whole boat doesn't go down and everyone dies. Anyways, after she decides to take the kids and Danny back across the boat, they start crossing the rope, and I thought Danny was going to make it, but...
If you are going to do this thing and there are flesh-eating anything in the water, put your hair up. Yeah,
100% tie your hair up. Because as they're crossing, Danny's hair like drags in the water, and they start jumping out of the water to attack Danny, like climbing up her hair, or yanking on her hair, I should say. And it's not long before she gets dragged into the water and just eaten. And I gotta tell you, as a kid, I would probably lose my mind and just fall into the water because I'm fucking terrified.
At 11, yeah, I think I would have just been screaming.
Anyways, the kids and Julie managed to make it across. Jake unties the rope from the boat and then ties it to himself and throws Derek's corpse into the body. And
he wasn't totally dead yet.
When Jake went to pick up Derek to throw him in the water, he wakes up for a second and says wet t-shirt, spits blood in his face, and then passes out again. And I gotta tell you, Derek has to be crawling with all kinds of diseases.
Gosh. Once again, we should be wearing gloves, or if there's no gloves, Walmart baggies or something, because Derek is a super creepy person who definitely has some kind of hepatitis, HIV, syphilis, gonorrhea cocktail happening in his body.
He wakes up to say wet t-shirt, spits blood in his face, and passes out. Jake throws him overboard to try to bait the piranhas away, and I'm a little confused by why he did this, but he jumps into the water underneath the boat and swims in through the crack to get to Kelly. Now, there's a door that goes below deck. I would have just yelled at Kelly, hey, the piranhas are distracted, swim across while they're distracted. Because she's just below deck. She can easily walk over. But anyways, instead, he swims underwater, gets to Kelly, and he opens these gas canisters that are underwater. And they're spewing out some type of gas. And
I assumed it was propane.
I'm assuming it's propane. I'm not sure because I don't know what they keep on boats.
Propane and propane accessories.
He swims through the crack, opens those canisters, gets to Kelly. He grabs a flare and duct tapes the flare to his radio. And him and Kelly make out. They call over and tell Novak to just, on his signal, to just drive off and that he's attached and they'll drag him out. So he lights the flare underwater, leaves the radio behind, and it starts to float up. And as soon as it gets to the top, it explodes. Novak gets the signal, starts driving the boat. They get yanked from under the boat, and all the piranhas, the concussion from the explosion kills all the piranhas. They slow down the boat and they yank Kelly and Jake back on board. Just when you think that you survived a horror movie, they get a call from Goodman who says the piranhas that he's been dealing with don't have any mature reproductive organs, so they're actually babies. And just as Novak is asking them, well, if they're the babies, where are the parents? He gets snatched right off the boat and they just roll credits.
No, Ben Wyatt.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna make it.
We liked you, Ben Wyatt. He was pretty cool when he was saving people on his jet ski.
He was He-Man saving the universe.
Yeah, and that's the end of the movie. It's just Ben Wyatt gone.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, because I only watched the movie once when I was 20, when it first came out. It was interesting to watch it again from the lens of an adult, because as a 20-year-old, I was just damn, there's tits everywhere. Yeah, I was I couldn't, if you would ask me what the plot was after I watched the movie, and this is me watching it while being embarrassed because there's a girl
that you're supposed to be on a date with, yes.
And I'm just damn, look at these boobs.
You should always choose a rom-com if it's a date.
She said she likes scary movies, and I was oh, there's this new monster movie, let's go watch it.
You made a choice.
Little did I know. I should have just researched the movie before.
I see you're awkward and raise you my mom.
Fair, I cannot top that.
And then as soon as we got out of the theater, she called my very religious at the time aunt to tell her not to let my cousin, who was a preteen,
God, how embarrassing,
go to see this movie with his buddies.
I just can't imagine calling up the boys and being look guys, I can't go. My mom said I'm not allowed.
Right. Who, obviously, I'm going to go ahead and just guess that my cousin knew what this movie was about 100%. And wanted to go see it with his friends.
100% knew. Ultimately, though, it was almost like a lens back into 2010.
Of the era. A lot of the movie was.
I remember as a kid seeing all these spring break ads. In MTV had their thing. And there was a lot of things that really promoted going out and partying on spring break. And then I got that age and I feel all that stuff stopped. Maybe it still happens, I just didn't know about it. I wasn't cool enough.
Was when this movie was filmed, Jersey Shore was really big. Which, that's up in Jersey, and this is clearly, on a lake. But same vibes.
But yeah, this movie was, God, it was so bad. But it served its purpose, I guess.
I actually kind of like this movie, not because it's good. So this movie is not good from a cinematic perspective. This movie is good because it's really cringy and campy and...
Cringy's the word.
Sort of silly take on a horror movie, I suppose.
The premise was good. So I was fine with earthquake, cavern opened up. That's not a bad horror movie. I've seen much worse.
I made you watch Velocipaster.
Nothing will ever top that.
You've seen so much worse.
Yeah, this wasn't a bad horror movie. It's just it fits every genre. Like there's a lot of really old like 80s and 90s horror movies. There's two concepts. It's blood and gore and boobs. And this captured that very much. Like if this had been made in the 80s, we'd be like, this is a cult classic. But because it was made in 2010, we're just like, yeah, it's just a really bad cringy spring break movie. Because every other movie has like either teenagers trying to go make out and have sex, or just for no reason being topless.
I would say that this falls into like a feel-good horror movie.
It is pretty chill. You just
it's
back.
Silly enough and has enough funny one-liners that it's you don't take it seriously.
The carnage is beautiful in this movie though. The whole like
they go over the top with the fake blood.
Yeah, I almost, if we do another spooky extravaganza, I'm 100% doing Piranhas as one of my voted movies.
I like that I've won the past couple of spooky extravaganza monster movie votes. And I've made these people watch Cocaine Bear and Velocipaster.
Ooh, Cocaine Bear was so good. It was such a stupid movie.
We're going to have to cover both of those on this eventually.
Oh, yeah. Cocaine Bear was something else.
Anyways, since we are in the spring break era right now, and if you're in the mood, go find yourselves Piranhas 3D and embrace your spring break vibes. Boobs, boats, blood. And that's this week's episode.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
On this episode's MonsterVerse moment, we are going to be talking about piranhas, which, no surprise, because the entire movie was focused on them. So my first question was, is there prehistoric piranhas? And the answer is, yes, actually there is. And you're going to love the name. It's very original. They decided to name this prehistoric piranha Mega Piranha.
Classic.
It does have a scientific name that I'm not going to try to pronounce. Everybody shortens it up to Mega Piranha. But it's not from the Mesolithic era. It's from the Miocene era. So a different era of prehistoric awesomeness. And that was about 8 to 10 million years ago. And it is a cousin of today's modern piranhas. But like on steroids. Souped up version.
Right.
The Jim Bro version of piranhas. Size, it was estimated to be around 3 feet or 1 meter long. That's much bigger than modern piranhas. Its bite force is believed to have had one of the most powerful bites relative to body size of any vertebrae. Some scientists think that it could be a force of over 1,000 pounds, for the record.
That's not terrifying at all.
It is terrifying. Unlike today's piranhas, with a single row of triangular-shaped teeth, mega piranhas had zigzag rows, more like a mix between modern piranhas and plant-eating fish.
So they could do more damage.
Well, and it probably gave them a greater variety in their diet.
Well, they want to be able to saw.
Similar to us, because we have, different shapes to our teeth to allow us to be more omnivorous, which this piranha most likely was. I mean, we wouldn't know for sure because all they found was a little bit of fossils.
Yeah, there's no way to know.
But they probably ate fish, plants, and other vertebrate creatures. It would have lived in what's now South America, but the only fossil we have is a piece of the upper jaw with teeth that was found in Argentina. They're really making some educated guesses on what they think this fish would have been like. There's not really a good way to know.
For all we know, it might not have even really been a piranha.
No, it could have been something else with similar teeth, but it's fairly educated guesses.
You have to deal with what you have.
Right. And it's fun to say that it was a huge, giant mega piranha.
We can't count on every prehistoric fish to perfectly be fossilized.
No, but I do have a picture of what it probably looked like and how big it was.
Fucking huge.
And it's basically a giant fish version of a toddler. It's big.
Yeah, it's fucking huge.
So, modern-day piranhas are freshwater fish native to South America, particularly the Amazon River basin. They have a bad reputation. Thanks, I think, a lot to media.
I was about to say, well, it's kind of like quicksands or pitfalls. When we're kids, we hear a lot about them. So we assume that, this is going to come up in my life. I remember hearing a lot about piranhas as a kid. And then there was Finding Nemo. I'm a piranha. So people really got into thinking they're super bad.
They used to just consider a very small group of 4 fish as piranhas, and that was based on their teeth. In more recent years, scientists have expanded what they consider a piranha, and now they're estimating between 30 and 60, with a lot of debate within that depending on the scientist you talk to.
That's still really small sample size for like schools or something.
Piranha waters are found, as I said, throughout South America. There's several different kinds. The most well-known piranha is the red-bellied piranha, otherwise called the red piranha, and it lives in the Amazon. It's very popular among fish enthusiasts, so there are a lot of people who just keep these as pets. I looked it up once, though. We can't have them in Arizona. It's illegal.
Why do I feel like if it wasn't, you would try?
Oh, I would totally love to own some piranhas. That would be so much fun.
Good God.
We could put things in the tank and feed it. It would be great.
What, is there a filter that's good enough to filter out whatever chunks would be left behind?
We'll just get other kinds of stuff for that. You know, we'll have a diverse ecosystem happening. But that being said, it's illegal, so we can't. They possess the razor-sharp, triangular teeth, what piranhas are very known for. However, they are omnivorous. They do hunt fish, insects, and crustaceans, and they're not really a significant threat to humans. They survive around 10-ish years in the wild, but like many creatures, unfortunately, overfishing and habitat destruction have really threatened their population. So they're in decline in some regions.
Do people eat them?
Yeah.
Oh, very well. I wasn't sure if they were like good.
It's still a fish. The next piranha is a red-eyed piranha. A lot of people also call them black piranhas or sometimes yellow or golden piranhas. And they, unlike the red-bellied piranhas, are pretty solitary. And they're actually a lot more aggressive. So red-bellied piranhas do travel in schools, but that's not really to hunt, as this movie portrayed. It's more for protection. You know, if you've got 50 friends with you, other things are less likely to mess with you, and the Amazon's full of some pretty nasty stuff in the water.
Yeah, it's a rough neighborhood.
Yeah, it is. The black piranha or the red-eyed piranha tend to be really solitary and incredibly aggressive.
They ain't got no friends because they mean.
Pretty much. And they're actually some of the largest. Their average length of about 13 inches or 1 foot. And if you are going to be attacked by a piranha, this is actually the one that might bite you. They found that when people are attacked by piranhas, they're usually a drought is happening or loss of water, they're starving, or if there is blood in the water. Fatal attacks on humans are really, really rare. Most of the time, somebody gets bit and pulls whatever limb was in the water out.
Right, it's not like this where they're getting like bodied by like 100. Because 100 fish taking 100 bites is going to kill you, but one fish taking 1 bite's kind of like whatever. You're more likely to get an infection and die from the infection than you are the actual bite.
Right. Once again, it's not completely unheard of. It is unusual. Modern day piranhas, about 1 foot. Mega piranhas, about 3 feet. And there's a bunch of other kinds. There's gold piranhas, white piranha, silver piranha, black spot piranha. I'm not going to go over all of them. And then, as I said, I think the most unrealistic thing about this particular movie, Piranha, is the fact that none of them are albino. So, lessons here. If you are swimming in the Amazon River, for whatever reason, you may be wanting to do that. It's highly unlikely that you would be swarmed and attacked by piranhas, but in the event that you are, climb out of the water. They're a fish. They're not going to grow legs and follow you.
Just don't swim in the Amazon.
Also an option. And that is this week's MonsterVerse moment. If you like what you heard, leave us a review or 5 stars, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye now.